They thought I was the perfect princess, fragile, grateful, easy to control. They were wrong. I stood in the marble foyer of my own penthouse, the one I had quietly paid for with every dividend check and silent investment over 30 years. The air smelled of fresh lilies and expensive scotch. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, adjusted the diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist. The one my son, Derek, had bought with the family allowance I wired every month. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, her voice dripping honey and venom. "We already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." She smiled as she said it. That small, triumphant curve of the lips people wear when they believe they have just slammed the door on someone forever. My son stood beside her, hands in his pockets, eyes on the floor. He didn't correct her. He didn't even flinch. I felt the words land like ice water down my spine. 31 years of marriage to his late father. 31 years of building the quiet empire no one knew about. 31 years of paying every private school bill, every country club membership, every overseas business trip that was really just another vacation on my dime. And this was the thank you. I didn't cry. I never do in front of them. Instead, I tilted my head just slightly, the way a queen might regard a servant who has forgotten her place. "Congratulations," I said. My voice was steady, calm. "I hope the honeymoon is everything you dreamed." Vanessa's smile faltered for half a second. She had expected tears, begging, maybe a dramatic scene. She got none of it. Derek finally looked up. "Mom, we wanted something intimate. You understand?" I understood perfectly. I understood that they had already transferred the wedding expenses to the black Amex I had given Derek for emergencies. I understood that the new beach house in the Hamptons was being titled in Vanessa's name alone, using the trust fund I had foolishly left accessible. I understood that my own son had signed the papers behind my back while I was in Zurich finalizing the last piece of a deal that would make the family wealth grow another 40% this quarter. I smiled back at them. Small, polite, lethal. "Well," I said, "I'm sure you'll both be very happy." Then I turned, walked to the elevator, and let the doors close without another word. That was the last time they saw the version of me they thought they knew. Part 1, 912 words. The next morning, I sat at the long walnut table in my study, the city skyline stretching out like a kingdom I had built brick by silent brick. My attorney, Richard Caldwell, poured himself coffee from the silver pot. He had been with me since the day my husband died. He knew every account, every clause, every contingency I had buried like landmines. "Eleanor," he said quietly, "they emptied the discretionary trust yesterday. 2.8 million. Wedding, rings, the new Range Rover in her name. All of it." I nodded once. The numbers didn't shock me anymore. They only clarified things. "Freeze everything else," I said. "The monthly allowance, the credit lines, the health insurance through the family plan, all of it, today." Richard didn't blink. "And the house they're moving into next week?" "The one I still hold title to? Yes. Prepare the eviction notice. Standard 30 days. Make it formal. No emotion." He wrote it down in his leather notebook. "You're sure you don't want to talk to Derek first?" I looked out at the skyline. Somewhere down there, my son and his new wife were probably laughing about how they had finally cut the old woman loose. "I spoke to him for 31 years, I said. "Now it's time for the paperwork to speak." Richard left with a quiet nod. I stayed at the table another hour, reviewing bank statements line by line. Every $40,000 wire to family support. Every $12,500 gift to Vanessa for her wardrobe upgrades. Every private jet charge to Aspen that I had never been invited on. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. What I felt was the cold, clean precision of a surgeon preparing to operate. By afternoon, the first notifications started coming in. Derek called 6 times. I let them go to voicemail. Vanessa texted, Eleanor, this is ridiculous. We're family. Call me. I read it once, then blocked the number. That evening, I met with my wealth manager at a small, discreet restaurant overlooking the river. We moved the bulk of the liquid assets into new vehicles they could never touch: irrevocable trusts, offshore structures, a private foundation with me as sole director. Numbers flew across the table in calm, measured tones. $18.4 million redirected by close of business tomorrow, he said. Good, I replied. And the Centurion card? Cancelled. New one issued in your name only. Delivered by courier tonight. I sipped my mineral water. No wine. Clarity was more important than comfort now. As I left the restaurant, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number this time. I answered. Mom? Derek's voice cracked just a little. What the hell is going on? The bank just declined my card at dinner. Vanessa is furious. I paused on the sidewalk, the cool night air brushing my face. Check your email, I said simply. Then I hung up. Inside the email was the first of many documents. A polite letter from my attorney informing him that the monthly stipend of $22,000 had been terminated effective immediately. That the lease on the new penthouse they had chosen was being terminated. That any further contact regarding financial matters would be handled exclusively through legal counsel. I could almost hear the silence on the other end of the city as they read it. I walked home slowly. My heels clicked against the pavement with steady rhythm. No tears, no shouting, just the quiet satisfaction of the first domino falling exactly where I had placed it years ago. But I knew this was only the beginning. Because tomorrow they would come knocking. And when they did, they would discover that the fragile princess they thought they had discarded had been keeping the keys to the entire kingdom all along. I opened the door to my penthouse, kicked off my shoes, and poured myself a single glass of scotch. The game had just started. They arrived at my door the next morning like two storm clouds wrapped in designer clothes. I had been expecting them. The doorman buzzed up at 9:17 a.m. sharp. I let them wait exactly 4 minutes in the lobby before I instructed security to send them up. When the elevator doors opened, Derek's face was already flushed with anger. Vanessa stood half a step behind him, arms crossed, the new diamond studs in her ears catching the light like tiny accusations. Mom, what the actual hell? Derek started before he even crossed the threshold. His voice bounced off the marble floors. You froze everything. The cards, the accounts. We couldn't even pay for breakfast this morning. I stood in the center of the living room, wearing a simple cashmere sweater and black trousers. No jewelry except my wedding band, the one I still wore for myself, not for anyone else. I held a porcelain cup of Earl Grey in my hand. Steam curled upward in slow, deliberate spirals. Good morning, I said, calm, measured. Would either of you like coffee? Or perhaps an explanation first? Vanessa stepped forward, heels clicking like gunfire. An explanation? You humiliated us in front of the entire wedding party. People are already talking. My mother called me crying because the flowers she ordered on your card were declined. I took a slow sip. The tea tasted clean, bitter in exactly the right way. Interesting, I replied, because the last time I checked, your mother's florist bill came to $14,700. That was charged to the black Amex I gave Derek for emergencies, not for weddings I wasn't invited to. Derek ran a hand through his hair, the same nervous gesture he'd had since he was 12. It was supposed to be a surprise. We thought you'd understand once we explained. Surprise, I echoed. The word felt sharp on my tongue. Like the surprise of finding out my only son got married without me. Like the surprise of watching $2.8 million walk out the door in under 48 hours. Surprises seem to be your specialty lately. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You're overreacting. We're family. This is our future you're playing with. I set the cup down on the glass table with a soft click. The sound seemed louder than it should have. Family, I said quietly. That word used to mean something. It meant late nights at the hospital when your father was dying. It meant selling my own mother's pearls so Derek could attend Exeter. It meant wiring $40,000 every month so you two could live the life you believed you were entitled to. And in return, I received yesterday's little performance. I walked to the sideboard and picked up a thick manila folder. Inside were the first batch of statements I had printed at 6 a.m. Let me show you what family looks like on paper. I opened the folder and slid the top sheet across the table toward them. January through March this year alone, $127,450 in charges. Restaurants I've never eaten at. Hotels in Miami during weeks I thought you were working late. A $28,000 engagement ring that somehow never made it to my finger as a courtesy introduction. And then the wedding itself. Private venue, $92,000. Catering, $47,500. Photographer who, interestingly, never sent me a single proof. Derek's jaw tightened. We were going to tell you. We just wanted it to be perfect. Perfect for whom? I asked. My voice never rose. It didn't need to. Vanessa snatched the paper. Her manicured nails left tiny crescents in the edge. This is insane. You can't just cut us off like this. Derek has rights. There are laws. I allowed myself the smallest smile. Not warm, surgical. Oh, I'm very familiar with the laws, Vanessa. That's why my attorney spent yesterday afternoon drafting a formal demand letter. You have 30 days to vacate the townhouse on 74th Street. The lease is in my name. The utilities are in my name. The security deposit, which was $85,000, will be forfeited if any damage is found. Derek's face went pale. You're evicting us? Your own son. I'm enforcing the terms you both ignored, I corrected. Terms that were always there in the trust documents you never bothered to read. The discretionary fund requires my approval for withdrawals over $50,000. You bypassed that with a forged signature. My signature, Derek. The one I taught you to copy when you were a teenager practicing for fun. Vanessa laughed. It was a brittle, ugly sound. Forged? Prove it. I reached back into the folder and pulled out the next document. A forensic report from a handwriting expert I had kept on retainer for years. Already done, I said. Page 3, notarized yesterday at 4:12 p.m. The bank has been notified. The funds are frozen pending investigation. Any attempt to access them will trigger an immediate fraud alert. The room grew very quiet. I could hear the faint hum of the city 38 floors below. Derek took a step closer. His voice dropped, almost pleading now. Mom, please, this is crazy. We're sorry. We'll make it right. Just unfreeze the accounts. We have the honeymoon booked in Santorini. Non-refundable. $63,000. I looked at him for a long moment. The boy I had carried in my arms. The man who had chosen to stab me in the back while I was still breathing. You have the honeymoon money, I said softly. It's sitting in the joint account you opened last week. $63,000 exactly. Use it. Enjoy it. Consider it my final wedding gift. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. I continued, voice still even. After that, the monthly support ends, permanently. The health insurance through my plan ends at midnight tonight. The car leases end in 30 days. And if either of you attempts to contact me again regarding money, my attorney will file for a protective order citing financial harassment. Derek's shoulders slumped. You're really doing this. I'm doing what should have been done years ago, I replied. When you started treating me like an ATM with a heartbeat. I walked to the elevator and pressed the call button. The doors slid open with a soft chime. Security will escort you out. Your belongings from the townhouse will be packed at your expense. Any questions can be directed to Richard Caldwell. His number is in the letter. Vanessa tried one last time. You'll regret this, Eleanor. When you're old and alone, you'll have no one. I stepped aside so they could enter the elevator. Alone? I said. I've been alone for a long time. The difference now is that I'm finally free to enjoy it. The doors began to close. Derek's voice cracked through the narrowing gap. Mom, wait! I met his eyes one final time. Goodbye, Derek. The elevator descended. I stood there for a full minute after they were gone, listening to the silence settle back into the apartment like fresh snow. Then I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and began the next set of transfers. $9.2 million moved into a new charitable foundation focused on women who had spent their lives supporting ungrateful families. The paperwork would be public by Friday. I leaned back in the chair and exhaled slowly. The storm had only just begun for them. For me, the sky was finally clearing, but I knew they wouldn't stop here. Not yet. Vanessa's family had money too. Old money. The kind that hires aggressive attorneys and whispers in country club lounges. They would come back harder. And when they did, I would be ready with the next layer of documents I had been preparing in secret for the last 18 months. I closed the laptop and poured myself another cup of tea. The taste was sharper now, sweeter somehow. The phone calls started at 11:42 a.m., first from Vanessa's mother, Margaret Harrington. Her voice was all silk and steel, the same tone she used when she chaired the hospital gala committee. Eleanor, darling, this is absurd. We're all family here. Let's sit down like civilized people and sort this out over lunch at the club. I let her finish the sentence. Then I answered with the same calm I had used on her daughter. Margaret, the last civilized conversation I had with your family ended the moment they excluded me from my only son's wedding. Lunch is off the table. So are the accounts. She tried again. You're making a terrible mistake. Derek is devastated. He didn't sleep last night. Neither did I for the first 30 years of his life when I was the one paying every bill while he slept soundly, I replied. Send my regards to the club. I hear the lobster salad is excellent this season. I hung up. By 2 p.m., the texts arrived in a flood. Blocked numbers, new numbers, even a burner from one of Vanessa's bridesmaids pretending to be concerned. I forwarded every single one to Richard with a single note. Evidence. At 3:17 p.m., my doorbell rang again. This time, it was not Derek and Vanessa. It was their new attorney, a tall man in a navy suit, carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His name was Philip Langford. I recognized the firm. They specialized in high-net-worth divorces and trust disputes. Expensive, loud, exactly the kind of muscle my son-in-law thought would intimidate an old widow. Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore? He asked, offering a card I didn't take. I am, I said, standing in the doorway. I didn't invite him inside. I represent Derek and Vanessa Whitmore. We have a formal demand letter regarding the immediate restoration of financial support, access to the discretionary trust, and cessation of any eviction proceedings. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in litigation for breach of fiduciary duty and undue influence. I looked at the thick envelope he held out. Cream paper, gold embossing, dramatic. I accepted it with 2 fingers as if it might stain my skin. 72 hours, I repeated. How generous. He straightened his tie. Mrs. Whitmore, you're a woman of considerable means, but courts look unfavorably on parents who suddenly cut off adult children after decades of support, especially when mental competence can be questioned in extreme cases. There it was, the first swing of the axe. Mental incompetence. I felt the word settle in my chest like a cold stone. Not shock, not fear, just the quiet click of another piece falling into place. I smiled, small, precise. Mr. Langford, before you threaten me with a mental incompetence petition, perhaps you should read the medical records I had updated last month. Full neurological workup, cognitive tests, all normal, signed by 3 separate specialists at Mount Sinai. Copies will be in your inbox by close of business today. His jaw tightened just slightly. I continued, You should also know that the trust documents contain a very specific clause, Section 14.2. Any attempt by a beneficiary to challenge the trustee's decisions through frivolous litigation triggers an automatic reduction of their remainder interest by 75%. That clause was added 6 years ago, after Derek missed 3 consecutive therapy appointments I paid for. Your client signed acknowledgement forms, digitally, time-stamped. Langford blinked once. I leaned in a fraction. My voice dropped to a near whisper. And one more thing. The moment any petition is filed, every bank statement, every wire transfer, every private jet receipt from the last decade becomes public record in discovery. I wonder how many of your other clients would enjoy seeing their names attached to $1.4 million in consulting fees that were really just gifts to keep my son's mistress quiet in 2022. The hallway grew very still. Langford cleared his throat. This is highly irregular. No, I said. This is mathematics, and the numbers no longer favor you. I closed the door before he could reply. Inside, I walked straight to the study and opened the safe. Inside lay the second folder, thicker, more complete. I spread the documents across the desk like a general laying out battle plans. Bank statements going back 11 years. Forged signature reports. Wire transfers to an account in Vanessa's maiden name. Photos of the new beach house deed recorded 3 days before the secret wedding. A copy of the prenuptial agreement Derek never told me he signed, the one that gave Vanessa full claim to any future inheritance from me. I photographed each page with my phone and uploaded them to the secure cloud Richard and I shared. Then I called my own attorney. Richard, I said when he picked up. They've lawyered up. Langford just left. They're talking mental incompetence. He exhaled through his nose. I could hear the faint sound of him flipping pages. Expected. I already have the motion ready to file first thing tomorrow. Motion to dismiss any future petition on grounds of bad faith. Plus a countersuit for fraud and conversion of assets. Good, I said. And the trust fund for the grandchildren that doesn't exist yet? Still locked. They can't touch a penny until any child is born and passes a paternity test. Clause 22.7. Ironclad. I closed my eyes for one brief second. The image of a future grandchild I might never meet flashed across my mind. Then I pushed it away. File everything, I told him, and prepare the restraining order paperwork. If they show up here again uninvited, I want security to have legal backing. Already drafted, he replied. Eleanor, are you all right? I looked out at the city. The sun was beginning to set, painting the glass towers in gold and rose. I'm better than all right, I said. I'm awake. That night, the silence in the penthouse felt different. Not empty, full, like the quiet before a symphony begins. At 10:53 p.m., my phone lit up with a single text from an unknown number. It was Derek. Mom, I'm begging you. Vanessa is talking about selling the story to the tabloids. Please don't make us do this. I read it twice. Then I typed back one line. Do what you feel you must. I have already done what I must. I turned the phone face down and walked to the bedroom. As I slipped between the cool sheets, I allowed myself one small moment of memory. The day Derek was born. The way his tiny hand had wrapped around my finger with impossible strength. I had given him everything I had. Now he would learn what it felt like to have nothing handed to him. Tomorrow, the real storm would break. Langford would file. Vanessa would scream. Derek would choose his side once and for all. And I would sit in this same chair, drinking the same tea, watching every single one of their moves through the clear glass of documented proof. I closed my eyes. Sleep came easily, because for the first time in decades, the only person I had to protect was myself. And I was very, very good at that. The papers arrived by courier at 8:47 a.m. I was already at my desk, reviewing the overnight transfers. $14.7 million now sat in 3 new irrevocable trusts, each with ironclad spendthrift clauses. The courier's knock was polite, professional. The envelope he handed me was not. "Mrs. Whitmore, you've been served." I signed the receipt without a tremor. Inside, a petition for guardianship. Mental incompetence lawsuit, filed in Supreme Court at 8:15 a.m. by Philip Langford on behalf of Derek and Vanessa Whitmore. They claimed I was of unsound mind, exhibiting sudden paranoid delusions, and incapable of managing my affairs. They wanted a temporary conservator. They wanted control of everything. I read the 12-page document twice. Then I placed it face up on the glass table and took a photograph with my phone. "Perfect," I said to the empty room. Richard arrived 23 minutes later. He didn't knock. He simply let himself in with the key I had given him years ago. His face was calm, but his eyes carried the sharp edge of a man who had already been up for hours. "They moved fast," he said, setting his briefcase down. "The petition includes affidavits from Vanessa's mother and 2 so-called friends who claim you've been erratic since the wedding. They're requesting an emergency hearing in 10 days. I poured him coffee, black, no sugar, the way he liked it. 10 days, I repeated. How thoughtful. Gives me time to prepare the response. He opened his own folder. I already filed the motion to dismiss last night at 11:59 p.m., counterclaim for abuse of process, plus the request for a restraining order. No contact, no harassment, no discussion of your finances with third parties." I nodded once. "And the press angle?" Richard's mouth tightened. "They leaked a statement to Page 6 at 7 a.m. Concerned family fears elderly widow is being manipulated by unknown advisors. No names, but everyone in our circle will know." I walked to the window. The city below looked the same, indifferent, beautiful. "Let them leak," I said. "I have bank statements from 2018 through yesterday. Every $33,400 wire to Derek's business consultant, who was really his bookie. Every $19,200 charge to a spa in the Bahamas that billed under Vanessa's maiden name. Every platinum card receipt signed with a shaky hand that forensic experts will match to Derek's, not mine." Richard flipped a page. "We can attach them as exhibits. Public filing. They'll hate that." "Good," I replied. "Attach them all. And add the Centurion card cancellation notice. Dated yesterday. $87,000 in charges they tried to run after midnight. Declined. All of them." My phone vibrated on the desk. Derek's number. I let it ring 4 times before I answered on speaker. "Mom?" His voice was raw. "They told me not to call, but I had to. This petition, it's not what I wanted. Vanessa's family pushed it. They say it's the only way to protect you." I leaned against the windowsill. The glass was cool against my shoulder. "Protect me," I echoed. The words tasted like metal. "From what, exactly? From the $2.8 million you took? From the forged signatures? Or from the fact that I finally stopped paying for your mistakes?" Vanessa's voice cut in from the background, sharp, panicked. "Eleanor, you're twisting everything. We're trying to help. The lawyer says you need supervision, for your own good." I laughed once, short, dry. "Supervision? How generous. Tell your lawyer I have 3 independent psychiatric evaluations on file, each dated within the last 30 days. All concluding I am fully competent. Tell him the judge will see them before lunch today." Derek breathed hard into the phone. "Mom, please, just meet us. No lawyers, we can fix this. I'll sign whatever you want. Just don't let it go public." I stared at the skyline. A helicopter drifted past, silent behind the triple-pane glass. "Public?" I said. "You already made it public when you leaked to Page 6. Now the public gets the truth. Every receipt, every lie. Every time you called me the old lady in texts I was never meant to see." Silence stretched for 3 full seconds. Then Vanessa hissed, "You're bluffing. You wouldn't humiliate your own son." I picked up the court petition and tapped it against the table. The sound carried clearly over the speaker. Watch me. I ended the call. Richard was already typing on his laptop. I'll add the recorded conversation to the evidence log. Voice analysis confirms both speakers. Date stamped. Admissible. I sat down across from him. Good. Now the eviction. The townhouse. What's the status? Notice delivered yesterday at 4 p.m. They have 27 days left, but they're refusing to acknowledge receipt. I've scheduled the marshal for day 31. Locks changed, belongings placed in storage at their expense. I opened another folder. Inside were the trust fund documents for the grandchildren clause, the one they had never known existed. Prepare a letter to Derek, I said. Inform him that any child born to him and Vanessa will receive $500,000 at birth, held in trust until age 25, but only if paternity is confirmed and no further legal action is taken against me. Otherwise, the clause activates the forfeiture provision. 0. Richard raised an eyebrow. That's cold. That's fair, I corrected. They wanted my money. Now they'll learn the exact price of every threat they make. By noon, the first reporter called. I didn't answer. Instead, I forwarded the number to Richard with instructions. Release the full bank statements to any legitimate outlet that requests them. No comment from me, just the numbers. At 1:34 p.m., my doorman buzzed. 2 process servers this time, additional filings, a motion to freeze all my accounts pending the hearing. I signed for them, smiled at the men in cheap suits. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a pleasant day. Inside, I scanned the new documents. Then I emailed Richard the counter motion I had drafted at 6 a.m. while they were still asleep. The afternoon passed in quiet precision. I reviewed every line of every account. $40,000 here, $22,000 there. Years of quiet support turned into silent weapons. I transferred another $6.3 million into the Women's Foundation. The press release would go out at 5 p.m. Headline: Widow establishes $25 million fund for mothers who supported ungrateful families. I could already picture the headlines they would try to write about me. Paranoid heiress cuts off son. I would answer with receipts. Cold, clear, irrefutable. At 6:22 p.m., my phone lit up again. Unknown number. I answered. It was Margaret Harrington, Vanessa's mother. Her voice shook with the kind of rage only old money can produce. Eleanor, you are destroying lives. My daughter is in tears. Derek is talking about checking himself into a facility. This is monstrous. I stood at the kitchen island, slicing a single apple with a silver knife. The blade moved in steady strokes. Monstrous, I said, like excluding a mother from her son's wedding, like forging documents to steal millions, like filing a lawsuit to declare me insane so you can loot the rest. She sputtered. We have evidence, therapists, witnesses. I set the knife down. Send it. My team will enjoy dissecting it. In the meantime, the restraining order will be served on all of you by morning. Any further contact is harassment, punishable by contempt. I hung up before she could reply. The apartment was quiet again. I finished the apple. The taste was crisp, clean, but I knew the next move would be bigger. They had one card left, the one they thought would end me. I opened my laptop and began drafting the final exhibit list for the hearing. Page after page of numbers, dates, signatures. Tomorrow they would double down. Tomorrow I would bury them in paper. I closed the laptop and poured a single finger of scotch. The liquid burned exactly the way I needed it to, because in 10 days, the courtroom would see the real Eleanor Whitmore, not the princess they had discarded, the one who had kept every receipt, the one who had waited, and the one who was about to turn their entire world into public record. I raised the glass to the empty room. Cheers, I whispered. Then I heard the elevator chime in the hallway outside. Someone was coming up, uninvited, at this hour. I set the glass down and walked toward the door, already knowing who it would be, and exactly what I would say when I opened it. The elevator chime echoed through the foyer like a warning bell. I didn't flinch. I simply straightened my shoulders, crossed the marble floor in 3 measured steps, and opened the door before security could intervene. It was Derek, alone. His eyes were bloodshot, tie loosened, the same suit he had worn to the courthouse filing that morning. Rain dotted his shoulders, even though the forecast had been clear. He looked smaller somehow, the way men do when the money that once padded their confidence suddenly vanishes. "Mom," he said, voice cracking on the single syllable. "Please, just 5 minutes. No lawyers, no papers. I came alone." I studied him for 3 full seconds. The boy I had once rocked to sleep. The man who had signed my name on a $2.8 million withdrawal. 5 minutes, I agreed. My tone left no room for negotiation. In the living room, door stays open. Security is watching the feed. He stepped inside. I closed the door behind him but left it unlatched. The faint click of the latch carried like a promise. We stood 6 feet apart. I didn't offer him a seat. "You look tired," he tried, a weak smile flickering. "I slept 8 hours," I replied. "You look broke." His smile died. "Vanessa's family is paying Langford. They're serious. The petition, it's real. They say if I don't back it, they'll cut her off too. Her trust fund, everything." I folded my arms. "Her trust fund, interesting. The one that lists $1.2 million in liquid assets she never disclosed on the prenup I never saw." Derek's face went slack. "You knew about that?" "I know every dollar that has touched this family since 2019, I said, "including the $47,000 she wired to her ex-boyfriend 3 weeks before your wedding. Labeled emergency loan." He swallowed hard. "That was nothing. Old debt." "Nothing," I echoed. The word hung between us like smoke. "Like the $33,400 I sent last month for your car repair that actually went to a private investigator tailing me in Zurich." His mouth opened, closed. I walked to the sideboard, picked up a single sheet I had printed at 7 a.m. while the city still slept. I handed it to him. "Read line 17, I said. He scanned it. His hands began to tremble. $19,800 to Harrington Global Consultants, he whispered. "Vanessa's father, dated the day after the wedding." "Consulting," I said flatly. "For what? Advising me on how to be declared incompetent? The invoice is attached in the court file I'm submitting tomorrow." Derek looked up. Real fear now. Not the performative kind from the phone calls. "Mom, if this goes to hearing, my name is on those affidavits. I signed them. Vanessa made me. She said it was the only way we'd survive." I took the paper back. My fingers brushed his. He recoiled as if burned. "Survive," I repeated. Short, sharp. "You had $22,000 a month, health coverage worth $9,400 annually. A townhouse with $85,000 security deposit. You survived on my oxygen for 34 years. Now you want to pull the plug and call it mercy." He sank onto the edge of the sofa uninvited. I didn't stop him. "I'm sorry," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I'll drop the petition. Today. I'll tell Langford it was a mistake. Just restart the allowance. 1 year, 6 months, anything." I let the silence stretch. 10 seconds, 15. The kind of quiet that makes people hear their own heartbeat. "No," I said finally. His head snapped up. "No more allowances," I continued. "No more wires, no more cards. But I will give you one chance. One. Sign the new trust amendment I prepared yesterday. It restores $500,000 in a separate account for you alone. No Vanessa, no joint access. And you agree in writing to never contact me again about money. Ever." He stared. That's nothing compared to what we had." "It's everything compared to zero," I replied, "and it's the last offer you will ever receive from me." Derek's eyes filled. Not tears exactly, something closer to panic. "Vanessa will leave me," he said. I tilted my head. Then perhaps she should have thought of that before she helped forge my signature on a $92,000 wedding venue contract. He stood up, paced 3 steps, stopped. "You're enjoying this," he accused. "Watching us drown." I walked to the open door and held it wider. "I'm not enjoying it," I said. "I'm surviving it. The same way I survived your father's cancer bills while you were in college. The same way I survived every emergency that was really just your bad choices." Security's footsteps sounded in the hallway. 2 guards, as I had texted them the moment the elevator chimed. Derek saw them. His shoulders slumped. "Mom, please, 1 more month, just until the hearing." I met his eyes, steady, unblinking. "The hearing is in 9 days. Your petition will be dismissed by lunch on day 1. My exhibits are numbered 1 through 47. Yours are 2 shaky affidavits and a hope that the judge feels sorry for a rich boy who lost his allowance." He stepped toward the door, paused right in front of me. "If I sign that paper tonight, will you at least talk to me again? Not about money, just talk." I looked at him for a long moment, the face I had kissed goodnight 1,000 times. "No," I said. "The bridge is burned. The ashes are already in the public record." The guards moved closer. Derek's voice dropped to a broken whisper. "You're really my worst nightmare." I smiled, small, precise, the first real one since the wedding announcement. "No, Derek, I was your safety net. Now I'm the ground." He left without another word. The elevator doors closed behind him with a soft, final ding. I shut my own door, locked it, deadbolt and chain. Then I walked straight to my desk, opened the laptop, and attached the audio recording of the entire 5-minute conversation to the court file. Time-stamped, voice authenticated, Exhibit 48. Richard would have it by 9 p.m. I leaned back in the chair. The city lights glittered below like distant stars. Tomorrow, Langford would try one last desperate motion. Maybe a press conference. Maybe a visit from Vanessa's father with his checkbook and his threats. I didn't care, because in my inbox already sat the final piece, the one I had been waiting for since the day they said, "We already got married yesterday." A forensic accounting report. $4.3 million in undisclosed assets moved into Vanessa's name using my power of attorney forms. Forms they thought I had forgotten about. I clicked send on the email to Richard. Subject line, "Add to Exhibit 49. Motion for sanctions tomorrow." I closed the laptop. The penthouse was silent again, but this time the silence felt like armor. They had pushed me to the edge. Tomorrow I would push back with the full weight of every receipt, every signature, every lie they had ever told. And when the courtroom doors opened in 9 days, they would finally understand the title they had given me. Not princess, nightmare. I poured the rest of the scotch down the sink. Clarity tasted better. But I knew the real blow would land the moment the judge read Exhibit 49, because inside that report was the one number they could never explain away. The $1.8 million wire to an offshore account, dated the day before the wedding, signed by both of them, in my name. I turned off the lights and walked to bed. Sleep would come, but first, one more text. To an unknown number I had saved months ago. The private investigator who had followed Vanessa since the engagement. Message. Release the photos tomorrow at 8 a.m. All of them. I hit send. Then I closed my eyes. The final act was already written. They just hadn't read the last page yet. The photos hit the internet at 8:03 a.m. I saw the first headline while I was still in my silk robe, stirring honey into black coffee. Page 6. Bold letters. Heiress's son and bride caught in secret affair. Photos show. $1.8 million wire to offshore account days before wedding. Below it, crystal clear images. Vanessa in a hotel lobby with her ex-boyfriend, the same one she had called an emergency loan. Derek standing beside her, handing over an envelope thick with cash, geotagged, irrefutable. My phone began to vibrate before I finished the first sip. Richard's name flashed first. "They're melting down," he said the moment I answered. "Langford just called me screaming about defamation. I reminded him the photos are from a licensed investigator hired with your funds 2 months ago. Fully documented. Exhibit 50 now." I set the cup down. "Good. Attach the wire transfer confirmation to the same email, the one signed by both of them using my power of attorney. $1.8 million routed through a shell company in the Caymans, labeled investment." Richard chuckled once, dry. "Already done. The judge's clerk received it at 8:15. Emergency hearing is still set for next week, but this just turned their petition into a joke." I walked to the window. The city looked sharper in the morning light, edges cut like the knife I had used on the apple last night. "Any word from Derek?" I asked. "None yet, but Vanessa posted a tearful video on her private Instagram at 8:27. Deleted it at 8:29. Too late. Screenshots everywhere." I didn't smile. Smiling felt unnecessary now. The machine was running exactly as I had calibrated it. By 9 a.m., the second wave arrived. A process server again, this time with an amended complaint. They had added defamation and invasion of privacy to the mix, demanding $10 million in damages, claiming I had orchestrated a smear campaign to avoid paying support. I signed for the papers in the foyer, thanked the man politely, and closed the door. Inside, I scanned the new filing line by line. Then I picked up my phone and called Richard on speaker while I opened the safe. "Add this to the counterclaim," I said. "Exhibit 51, the original power of attorney they used. Exhibit 52, bank statement showing the wire left my account at 11:47 p.m. the night before the wedding. Exhibit 53, Vanessa's text to Derek that same night saying, 'She'll never know. We'll blame it on market volatility.'" Richard whistled low. "You kept the texts." "I keep everything," I replied. "Now prepare the motion for sanctions. $250,000 minimum. Cite bad faith filing. Cite the fact that their own lawyer knew about the offshore account because Langford's firm represented the shell company last year." I hung up and moved to the next folder on my desk. Inside, the full forensic audit I had commissioned quietly 6 weeks ago. $4.3 million total siphoned. $2.1 million in forged checks. $1.2 million in cash withdrawals disguised as gifts to charity. I photographed the summary page and emailed it to the judge's chambers with a single cover note. For immediate review prior to hearing. At 10:45 a.m., the doorbell rang again. This time it was Vanessa, alone. Eyes swollen, makeup streaked. She wore yesterday's designer dress like armor that had already cracked. I opened the door but did not step aside. "You win," she said, voice hoarse. "I'll leave Derek. I'll sign whatever you want. Just stop the photos. Stop the filings. My father is threatening to cut me off completely." I looked at her for 4 full seconds. The woman who had called me the old lady in group chats I was never meant to see. "Win," I echoed. The word felt foreign. "This isn't a game, Vanessa, it's accounting. You took $4.3 million. I'm taking it back through the only language you understand." She stepped closer. Her breath smelled of coffee and panic. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. 8 weeks. Derek doesn't know yet. If the hearing happens, the stress—" I raised one hand, not in sympathy, in dismissal. "The trust clause for grandchildren requires a paternity test and no ongoing litigation," I said. "You already triggered the forfeiture provision when you filed the petition. $0, not 1 cent. Her face crumpled, real tears this time, not the Instagram kind. "Please," she begged. "I'll do anything. Public apology, whatever you want." I tilted my head. "Anything?" She nodded frantically. I reached behind me, picked up the single sheet I had prepared at dawn. A new document, simple, brutal. "Sign this," I said. "Full confession, admission of forgery, Admission of the offshore wire. Admission that the wedding exclusion was deliberate, notarized, today, in front of my attorney. Then I will consider dropping the sanctions motion. The eviction stays, the monthly support stays terminated. But I won't ask the judge to refer the file to the district attorney for fraud charges. She stared at the paper. Her hand shook when she took it. "This will ruin us," she whispered. "You already ruined yourselves," I replied. "I'm simply filing the paperwork." Vanessa looked up. Hate and fear mixed in her eyes like oil and water. "You're a monster," she spat. I closed the door until only 6 inches remained. "No," I said. "I was the bank. Now I'm the auditor, and the audit is finished." She stood there another moment, clutching the paper like it might burn her. Then she turned and walked to the elevator without signing. I watched the doors close behind her. Back at my desk, I added one more line to the evidence log. Attempted emotional coercion via false pregnancy claim. Timestamp 10:52 a.m. Audio recording active from foyer camera. Richard called at 11:30 a.m. "The judge just issued an order," he said. "Sua sponte, no emergency conservatorship. Full hearing still on, but he wants both sides in chambers tomorrow at 2 p.m. for a settlement conference. He read the exhibits, all 49 of them." I exhaled once, slow, controlled. "Prepare the final offer," I told him. $250,000 lump sum to Derek only, payable in 5 years. If and only if no further contact ever, and a permanent restraining order covering all 3 of them, Margaret Harrington included. "Done," he said. "Eleanor, they're going to fold. You know that, right?" I looked at the city again. The sun had climbed higher. The shadows were shorter. "They can fold," I said, "or they can break. Either way, the numbers are final." I ended the call and opened my laptop one last time that morning. I transferred another $3.7 million into the Women's Foundation. The press release updated automatically. Total now $28.7 million. Purpose unchanged. Then I closed the screen. The penthouse felt different now. Not lighter exactly, clearer. Like the air after a storm has passed, but the ground is still wet. I knew tomorrow's chambers meeting would be the last quiet moment. Langford would bluster, Vanessa would cry, Derek would beg one final time, and I would sit there in my simple black suit, hands folded, reciting numbers like scripture. $4.3 million stolen, $2.8 million wedding, $1.8 million offshore, 0 going forward. But I also knew one more thing. They still had one card left, the one they thought would hurt me most. A public statement from Margaret Harrington scheduled for 4 p.m. today. I had already seen the draft leaked to my investigator. It called me unstable, cruel, a mother who never loved her son. I poured a fresh cup of coffee. Let them release it. Because at 4:01 p.m., my own statement would drop. Not words, just 127 pages of bank statements. Every transaction, every lie, every dollar they had ever taken while smiling to my face. I sipped the coffee. It tasted exactly right. But as I set the cup down, my phone lit up with a single text from Derek. "Mom, chambers tomorrow, please. One last chance before it all goes public forever." I stared at the screen for 10 full seconds. Then I typed back the only truth left. "It already did." I hit send. The final domino was already falling. And when it landed tomorrow at 2 p.m., the sound would echo through every country club, every boardroom, every trust fund in this city. They had thought I was the princess. Tomorrow they would learn I was the reckoning. I walked to the bedroom and chose the suit I would wear. Black, simple, tailored like armor. Perfect. The conference room in the judge's chambers smelled of polished wood and quiet desperation. I arrived at 1:47 p.m., exactly 13 minutes early, wearing the black suit I had chosen the night before. Richard walked beside me, briefcase in hand, expression unreadable. We took our seats on the left side of the long oak table. The right side was empty until 1:59 p.m. Derek and Vanessa entered first. Her eyes were puffy. His shoulders curved inward, the same defeated posture he had worn the night he begged at my door. Langford followed, jaw set, clutching a thinner folder than the one he had arrived with 2 weeks earlier. Margaret Harrington brought up the rear, lips pressed into a thin line, designer handbag clutched like a shield. The judge entered at 2 p.m. sharp. Honorable Harlan Whitaker, 62, known for cutting through nonsense in under 10 minutes. Mrs. Whitmore, he said, nodding at me. Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, counsel, we're here for a settlement conference on the petition for conservatorship and the related counterclaims. Let's keep this civil and efficient. Langford cleared his throat. Your Honor, my clients are prepared to withdraw the petition in exchange for immediate restoration of the discretionary trust at its prior level of $22,000 per month, reinstatement of all credit lines, and a lump sum payment of $750,000 to cover emotional distress caused by the public smear campaign. I didn't move, not a single muscle. Richard slid a single sheet across the table. Your Honor, we have a counterproposal. 0 restoration, 0 lump sum. Permanent restraining order against all 3 respondents and Mrs. Harrington. And a stipulated judgment of $4.3 million in restitution for converted assets. Langford laughed once, sharp and nervous. That's outrageous. My clients have suffered reputational harm. The photos alone. The photos, I said, voice level, are authenticated bank records. Exhibit 50. $1.8 million wired to Cayman National Bank account number 478-291-Alpha, opened in Vanessa Whitmore's maiden name. Signed by both respondents using a power of attorney they obtained while I was still wiring them $40,000 every month for living expenses. I opened my own folder. Slow, deliberate. The sound of paper sliding across wood filled the room. Exhibit 51, forged signature analysis, 3 independent experts, match probability 99.7%, applied to the $92,000 wedding venue contract and the $2.8 million discretionary withdrawal. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth. Derek stared at the table as if it might swallow him. Margaret leaned forward. Your Honor, this woman is vindictive. She's punishing her own son for wanting a private wedding. I turned my gaze to her. Private. Interesting word. Exhibit 52. Text message chain between Derek Whitmore and Vanessa Harrington, dated 6 weeks before the wedding. Quote, Mom will throw a fit if she finds out. Better to do it quiet and let her pay later. End quote. Followed by your daughter's reply, she's old. She won't even notice the missing millions. The judge raised one eyebrow but said nothing. He was listening. Langford tried again. Even if the numbers are accurate, a conservatorship is still warranted. Sudden withdrawal of support after decades indicates possible mental decline. I slid the next document forward, 3 pages this time. Exhibit 53, my neurological evaluation, completed 4 weeks before the secret wedding. Cognitive capacity, superior range. Signed by Dr. Elena Marquez, Chief of Neurology at Mount Sinai. Exhibit 54, same report from 2 additional board-certified physicians. All 3 conclude I am fully competent. Your clients received copies of these reports yesterday at 9 a.m. They filed anyway. Silence stretched. I continued, each word precise. Exhibit 55, bank statements covering the last 36 months. Total unauthorized transfers, $4.3 million. Broken down as follows. $1.2 million in cash withdrawals labeled gifts. $900,000 in private jet charters I never boarded. $650,000 to a jewelry store in Soho for pieces never seen on my wrist. $1.8 million offshore, as previously noted. Derek's voice cracked. Mom, I didn't know it was that much. I looked at him directly for the first time since they entered. You signed every transfer, Derek. Every single one. The forensic report confirms it. Exhibit 56. And the night before your wedding, you used my Centurion card to book the honeymoon suite in Santorini. $63,000. Declined the moment I canceled the card. That charge appears on Exhibit 57. Vanessa started to cry. Real tears. The kind that smear mascara and leave tracks on expensive foundation. Langford's face had gone pale. Your Honor, we request a recess to review these new exhibits. The judge leaned back. Mr. Langford, these exhibits were all filed yesterday afternoon. You had 18 hours. Mrs. Whitmore's counsel has provided courtesy copies to your office at 5 p.m. yesterday. No recess. Respond now. I folded my hands on the table. Calm. Final. Additionally, I said, Exhibit 58, the full audio recording from my foyer camera 2 nights ago. Vanessa Whitmore informed me she was pregnant in an attempt to elicit sympathy. A pregnancy test purchased with the last remaining funds on a card I had not yet canceled. Purchased at 10:47 p.m. the same night. The test was negative. The recording confirms she knew that before she spoke. Vanessa's head snapped up. That's private. It's evidence of bad faith coercion, I corrected. Filed this morning. Your Honor, my final position is simple. Withdraw the petition. Accept the restraining order. Agree to the stipulated judgment of restitution in the amount of $4.3 million, payable over 10 years from any future earnings. Or we proceed to full hearing next week, where every page of these exhibits becomes public record forever. Margaret Harrington slammed her palm on the table. This is blackmail. No, I said. This is mathematics. The same mathematics you taught your daughter when you encouraged her to marry into money she never earned. The judge looked at the other side of the table. Counsel? Clients? Do you wish to accept Mrs. Whitmore's terms or proceed? Langford opened his mouth. It looked at Derek. Derek stared at me, eyes hollow. Mom, please, I'm your son. I met his gaze without blinking. You stopped being my son the day you signed my name to steal from me. Now you're simply a debtor. Vanessa whispered something to Langford. He shook his head once, defeated. We accept, Langford said. His voice was barely audible. Subject to drafting, of course. The judge nodded. Very well. Mrs. Whitmore's terms are accepted on the record. Orders to be prepared by close of business tomorrow. Petition dismissed with prejudice. Restraining order granted. Restitution judgment entered. Court is adjourned. Chairs scraped. They stood. Derek took one step toward me. Mom, can we at least— No, I said. The single word cut the air like a blade. Security opened the door. Richard and I rose together. As I passed Vanessa in the hallway, she grabbed my sleeve. Her fingers trembled. You took everything, she hissed. I looked down at her hand until she let go. No, I replied. You took everything first. I simply asked for the receipts. I walked out of the courthouse into the late afternoon light. The city hummed around me, indifferent and alive. Richard fell into step beside me. It's over, Eleanor. The wire transfers will be reversed where possible. The townhouse eviction proceeds on schedule. They have nothing left. I nodded once. Good. But as the car pulled away from the curb, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Derek. We're not done. Vanessa's family has one more card. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow morning. They're going nuclear! I stared at the screen for 5 full seconds. Then I typed back a single line. Bring it! I hit send and slipped the phone into my bag. The final receipts were already prepared. Another 312 pages. Every lie, every affair, every offshore dollar, cross-referenced and ready for the morning news cycle. They thought the courtroom was the end. They were wrong. The real nightmare was just beginning. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp at the Harrington family's private club on Fifth Avenue. I knew because my investigator sent the tip at 6:47 a.m. along with a scanned copy of the press release. Headline, Distraught family speaks out against elderly widow's cruel campaign of financial abuse. Margaret Harrington would lead. Derek and Vanessa would stand beside her like props. Langford had already leaked quotes to 3 outlets. They were going nuclear just as Derek had promised. I sat at my desk in the penthouse, coffee cooling beside me, and opened the final folder. 312 pages. Every receipt, every forged signature, every offshore transfer, every text message, every hotel charge, every lie, cross-referenced, notarized, and time-stamped. I clicked send at 9:58 a.m. Subject line, full public record, Whitmore versus Whitmore. Recipient list, every major news desk in the city, plus the wire services. Attachment, 1 PDF, password protected until exactly 10:01 a.m. Then I turned on the television, muted the sound, and watched. At 10:02 a.m., Margaret stepped to the podium in a navy suit that cost more than most people's rent. Microphones bristled like thorns. Cameras flashed. "My daughter and son-in-law have been the victims of a vicious, calculated campaign," she began. Her voice trembled with practiced outrage. "Eleanor Whitmore has used her wealth as a weapon. She has frozen accounts, leaked private photos, and destroyed reputations. This is elder financial abuse in reverse." Vanessa stood beside her, eyes downcast, one hand resting on her stomach in a gesture that might have fooled someone who hadn't seen the negative pregnancy test. Derek looked straight ahead, jaw tight, the same defeated expression he had worn in chambers. I sipped my coffee. It was lukewarm now. I didn't care. At 10:04 a.m., my phone lit up. News alerts, one after another. Explosive documents released by Eleanor Whitmore. $4.3 million in alleged fraud exposed. Court records show forged signatures, offshore wires by son and bride. Page 6 exclusive, full 312-page file drops during family press conference. The ticker at the bottom of the screen scrolled in real time. I unmuted the television just long enough to hear Margaret falter mid-sentence as her aide whispered in her ear. Her face went the color of old paper. "Mrs. Harrington," a reporter shouted, "have you seen the documents released 2 minutes ago by Mrs. Whitmore's team? They include bank statements showing $1.8 million wired to an account in your daughter's maiden name the night before the wedding." Margaret opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Vanessa stepped forward, voice cracking. "Those are lies, fabricated. My mother-in-law is unstable." The reporter cut her off. "The documents include forensic handwriting analysis, 99.7% match, plus text messages from your phone admitting the plan to let her pay later." Derek's shoulders slumped another inch. He didn't speak. He simply stared at the bank of cameras like a man watching his own funeral. I turned the television off at 10:12 a.m. My phone rang. Richard. "They're done," he said without preamble. "Every outlet is running the full file. The judge's office just called. They're issuing a gag order on all parties effective immediately. Any further public statements will be considered contempt." "Good," I replied. "And the restitution judgment?" "Filed this morning. Liens placed on the townhouse, the beach house, and the Range Rover. Collection begins in 30 days. Their attorney tried to negotiate a reduction to $2 million. I laughed and hung up. I stood and walked to the window. The city looked the same. But somewhere down there, 2 people who once called me family were watching their lives collapse in high definition. At 11:03 a.m., the doorman buzzed. "Mrs. Whitmore, your son is in the lobby. He says it's urgent. No lawyers. He looks destroyed." I considered for 3 seconds. "Send him up," I said. "Alone, 1 minute only." Derek stepped out of the elevator at 11:07 a.m. His suit was wrinkled, eyes red. No Vanessa, no Margaret, just him. He didn't even try the please this time. "You released everything," he said, voice flat. "My name is everywhere. I lost my job offer at the bank. Vanessa's father cut her off. We're moving out of the townhouse tomorrow. The marshals are coming at 9. I stood 6 feet away, arms at my sides. No folder this time. No need. You still have the $250,000 settlement offer from Chambers, I said. 5 years from now, if you stay silent. That's more than most people ever see. He laughed once, a broken sound. You think that fixes it? No, I answered. Nothing fixes it. But it's the last dollar you will ever receive from me. Sign the final agreement by noon today, or the offer evaporates. The restraining order remains either way. Derek reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded paper. Already signed. His hand shook as he held it out. I signed it downstairs, he said. Vanessa, too. We're done asking, we're just… done. I took the paper, scanned the signatures. Valid. Notarized at 10:45 a.m. while the press conference was still imploding. Good, I said. He looked at me one last time. You really are the nightmare they called you. I met his eyes without flinching. I was your mother. You made me the auditor. The elevator doors opened behind him. He stepped inside. As the doors began to close, he spoke one final time. I wish I had invited you to the wedding. I didn't answer. The doors sealed. The car descended. I walked back to my desk, placed the signed agreement in the safe, and transferred the $250,000 into a new escrow account dated 5 years from today. Irrevocable. One condition only: no contact. Then I opened the final document, the one I had prepared 6 months earlier, the day I first suspected the forgery. A full revocation of any future inheritance rights for Derek Whitmore, filed with the probate court this afternoon, effective immediately. $47 million in liquid assets, $112 million in trusts. All of it redirected to the Women's Foundation I had grown to $32.4 million overnight. The press release would go out at 4 p.m. Title: Eleanor Whitmore announces $150 million lifetime commitment to financially abused mothers. Family trust dissolved. I closed the laptop. The penthouse was silent. No more buzzing phones, no more process servers, no more threats. I poured a single glass of scotch and carried it to the terrace. The afternoon sun warmed my face. Below, the city moved on, indifferent. I had won. Not with shouting, not with tears, with paper, with numbers, with the quiet, merciless precision of truth. Yet as I raised the glass, one final text arrived. Unknown number. It was Vanessa. We're pregnant. For real this time. Doctor confirmed yesterday. Please, Eleanor, for the baby. I stared at the screen for 10 full seconds. Then I blocked the number. The child would never know my name. The trust clause was ironclad. 0. I sipped the scotch. It burned clean. Tomorrow the marshals would change the locks on 74th Street. The liens would freeze the last of their accounts. The story would run in every paper for weeks. And I would sit here, alone by choice, drinking tea in the morning and scotch at dusk, finally free. But I knew one more thing. They still had one last desperate card. A private investigator of their own, hired yesterday, already digging into my foundation. I smiled into the glass. Let them dig. I had buried the landmines years ago. And this time, when they stepped on one, the explosion would be public, permanent, and perfectly documented. The real end was still 24 hours away. I finished the scotch and walked inside. The city lights were just beginning to flicker on. Perfect. The final blow came at 9:17 a.m. the next morning. My investigator's encrypted email landed in my inbox with the subject line, "They took the bait." Attached, surveillance footage from the private investigator Derek and Vanessa had hired 48 hours earlier. Grainy but clear. The man in the cheap gray suit standing outside the foundation's downtown office, trying to charm the receptionist with questions about irregularities in donor funds. He flashed a fake press badge. Asked about mental incompetence filings against me. Offered $5,000 in cash for any internal memo. I watched the footage once. Then I forwarded it directly to Richard with 3 words. File now, everything. By 9:45 a.m., the new motion was submitted to the same judge who had dismissed their conservatorship petition. Motion for sanctions. Motion for permanent injunction against any further investigation into the Eleanor Whitmore Foundation. Motion to refer their hired investigator to the district attorney for attempted bribery and witness tampering. Exhibit 59 through 67. The full chain of texts between Derek, Vanessa, and the PI. Bank statement showing the $15,000 they had scraped together from a pawned engagement ring to pay him. The same ring I had never seen. I sat on the terrace with a fresh cup of Earl Grey. The steam rose in perfect spirals. No rage, no triumph yet, just the quiet click of the last lock sliding into place. At 10:22 a.m., Richard called. They're in my office right now, all 3 of them. Langford looks like he aged 10 years overnight. They want to talk. No cameras. No record. I took a slow sip. Put me on speaker. The line clicked. I heard breathing, shallow, panicked. Eleanor, Margaret Harrington began, voice stripped of its Fifth Avenue polish. We're prepared to sign anything. Drop the sanctions. We'll issue a public retraction. Just don't let the DA file charges. My husband's firm is already asking questions. I let the silence stretch exactly 10 seconds. Margaret, I said, tone even, you hired a man to dig through a charitable foundation dedicated to women you helped create. Women like the version of me you tried to bury. The bank statements you're so afraid of? They're already exhibits. The $15,000 transfer cleared your daughter's new joint account at 8:03 a.m. yesterday. The same account that still lists my name as co-signer because you never bothered to change it. Vanessa's voice broke in, raw. Please, we're homeless after the eviction notice tomorrow. The marshals are coming. Derek lost his last interview when the story broke again this morning. I set the teacup down. The porcelain clicked against the glass table like a judge's gavel. Eviction notice, I repeated, signed by me, delivered 30 days ago. The townhouse was never yours. The Range Rover was leased on my platinum card. Cancelled. The beach house deed was recorded in your name using my power of attorney. Forged. Exhibit 62. The court has already placed liens on all of it. Restitution judgment stands at $4.3 million. Payable. No negotiation. Derek spoke next. His voice was barely a whisper. Mom! We have nowhere to go. The baby is real this time. We saw the ultrasound yesterday. Please, one last wire. $50,000, enough for a month. I closed my eyes for half a second. The image of a grandchild I would never hold flashed once, then vanished. The trust fund clause for any grandchild, I said, requires no ongoing legal action and a clean paternity test. You triggered the forfeiture the moment you hired that investigator. 0. The foundation will never see your names again. Langford tried to insert himself. Mrs. Whitmore, we can still settle this quietly. No, I cut him off. Short. Final. There is no quiet left. You chose public. I chose documented. The DA will receive the full file at noon today unless you sign the expanded restraining order right now. No contact, no investigations, no stories. Ever. Sign it in front of Richard, then leave his office and never speak my name again. I heard paper rustle, pens click, 3 signatures shaky and fast. Richard came back on the line privately. It's done. They're walking out now. Security is escorting them to the street. The DA file is paused, but the liens are active. The marshals will change the locks at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I exhaled once. Long, slow. The air tasted clean. Thank you, Richard, I said. Send the final press release at 1 p.m. The foundation just received an additional $47 million bequest. My entire personal estate. Irrevocable. No family beneficiaries. He paused. You're sure? I've never been surer. I ended the call and walked inside. The penthouse felt vast, not empty, spacious. Mine! I opened the safe one last time. Inside, the original wedding invitation they had never sent me. The one with the embossed gold script. Only special people. I folded it once, placed it in the shredder, and watched the blades turn it into confetti. Then I sat at my desk and typed the final email to the foundation board. Subject: New mission statement, effective immediately. Support for women who gave everything and received nothing in return. No strings, no judgments, just the freedom that comes from financial independence. I hit send. At 1 p.m., the press release dropped. Headlines shifted again. Not scandal, legacy. Eleanor Whitmore donates entire fortune to abused mothers. Family ties severed permanently. I turned off my phone. No more notifications, no more numbers, just the quiet hum of the city 38 floors below. That evening, I stood on the terrace again. The sun dipped behind the towers, painting the sky in rose and gold. I held a single glass of scotch, not to celebrate, to mark the end. I had given 34 years of my life to people who saw me as an ATM with a heartbeat. They had taken the money, the respect, the invitation to their wedding. In return, they had handed me the only thing I truly needed: proof. Proof that silence is louder than shouting. Proof that a single well-timed bank statement can topple an empire built on lies. Proof that independence is the sharpest weapon of all. I took one sip. The scotch burned clean and warm. Tomorrow the marshals would lock them out of the townhouse. The liens would freeze their last accounts. The restraining order would follow them like a shadow. And I would wake up here, alone by choice, with $150 million working for women who would never have to beg their children for scraps. No tears, no regret, just the deep, bone-settling peace of a woman who had finally kept the last receipt. I raised the glass to the empty sky. To the nightmare they created, I whispered, and the freedom they gave me. I poured the rest of the scotch over the railing. The liquid caught the last light like tiny diamonds before it disappeared. Then I walked inside, closed the terrace doors, and turned off the lights. The city kept moving below. I didn't need to watch it anymore. I was finally, perfectly free.